Welcome to my power cabinet, and today's mission is to tackle everything charge controller. What you're looking at is my particular brand and model. It's a Renogy Rover 20 amp MPPT charge controller. It's only 20 amp because my original motivation for this whole project was to design and invent a system that was as cheap as possible, as safe as possible, as powerful as possible, as user-friendly as possible, and as idiot-proof as possible. I think I did a pretty good job considering that I'm not even over $1,300 yet, and I have 3 kilowatts of storage and MPPT charge controllers with Bluetooth and thermometers and whatnot. Well, that doesn't even matter. We're going to get into charge controllers, what they can do, what they do for you, how you can make them use, or how you can use them better for yourself, and what's exactly going on. Most people worry about the amperage ratings because that's what they're told to worry about, and then they get it set up once and they forget about the rest of it because most of the time most people don't need to fiddle with stuff. They don't need to worry about what's happening as long as it's working the way that it needs to work for them, I guess. So this might be a little bit overload of information, but I don't know. Some people might be out there be curious at what's actually going on, what all these screens mean, and what everything on each screen means. Before I get into that, though, I do have the 20 amp version. It's very small. I've only got 2 panels. I kind of wish I would have gotten a bigger one. There's nothing wrong with getting a larger charge controller than you need because all that's going to do is allow you to grow in the future and add more panels. But my system does what I need more than what I need right now, and so I'm not really too worried about it. If I ever wanted to add another panel, I would have to upgrade the solar charge controller, though, because my maximum is at about 18.5 amps out of 20, so it's not like I can stack another panel on top of that. I do have the Bluetooth module and the thermometer, and that Bluetooth module is going to save you endless hours of frustration and anger and running through these menus and submenus and submenus of submenus through with just these 4 buttons. You can do everything on the charge controller face here with these buttons that you can through the Bluetooth app on your phone, but it's a hell of a lot more of a headache and takes way longer, and you'll be having to go through menus 15 different times because you went too far, and it's that archaic system of the tree submenu, and then you gotta go all the way back and go all the way back. Anyway, the $40 or $50 at the Bluetooth and thermometer package, even if it is 50, I don't know, it's 30 or 40, 50, something like that, is totally worth it. 100% worth it. The best thing that you'll buy for the entire system as far as installing and easing your headache and worry. Because I can pull up on my phone and do everything instantly. It's like almost like an Excel spreadsheet. Every single parameter has a line. You can change it. You can see exactly what it is, right down to 100th of a volt, and it's just infinitely easier and makes life way more enjoyable when first installing and keeping an eye on everything. It's not the strongest Bluetooth in the world. I can get about 15-20 feet away from the bus on the outside. It is inside of my power cabinet with a whole bunch of electronics. That's inside a big 10 Twinkie school bus, but it doesn't need to go any further. It's not Wi-Fi. It's not connected to the internet. It's just for local monitoring and tweaking, I guess, if you will. So moving on to this main screen here, every charge controller is going to have a screen like this. Every MPPT charge controller, anyway, is going to have a screen like this. There's 2 kinds of charge controllers out there right now, the MPPT and the PWM. The PWM is just older technology. It's not as efficient. It doesn't regulate the same as the MPPT or multi-power point tracking is what those 4 letters or that acronym stands for. PWM is just kind of a straightforward. It doesn't let it go over, it doesn't let it go under, but it's not maximizing anything, and it's not making full efficient use of the solar photovoltaic rays, if you will. And so now that we've covered the model, I don't think most people don't, initially anyway, put it together that what the charge controller's job is and why it's there and why it's essential. What does a solar panel do? It takes the photovoltaic rays from the sun and turns it into a DC amperage current. Obviously, everything can influence that DC current, like the time of day, the time of year, sun, no sun, clouds, shade from trees, everything can whether your panels are tilted or not, everything can influence that fluctuation of state of, or not state of charge, but of the input charge coming from your panels. And so what the charge controller literally does is take control of that charge. It takes that inconsistent, fluctuating, always all over the place DC current coming from the solar panels, and through the circuitry and electronics and magic, if you will, inside of the charge controller, it turns it into a steady, constant, safe voltage that you set depending on what kind of battery configuration you have, and then safely uses that current to charge your batteries at a consistent number and at a consistent rate. If it goes under and the sun isn't providing enough to safely charge, the charge controller shuts off. If there's more sun than you need and your batteries are already topped off, the controller is going to stop charging. And that's one thing I should touch on. People freak out sometimes when they're sitting there and they just turn their system on for the first day and they're watching it go up and they go up and they go up and they go up and it gets to 100%, and all of a sudden the charge disappears and they don't have any more amperage and there's no more watts coming from the panels, and they think something catastrophically has gone wrong, but they are thinking it abstractly enough to where they're not putting together that there's nowhere for that electricity to go. If your batteries are at 100%, your charge controller is literally doing its job by stopping the charge coming from those panels. You don't want to overcharge batteries, you blow them up. And so when people first look at that and they're like, oh, what's going on? It went from charging at, this many amps to 0. And now I don't know what to do. I don't know what I did. And that's not you. That's literally the box and the charge controller doing its job safely. That's what it's supposed to do. So you don't have to. I think a lot of people think that they need to be more involved with these solar systems, or there's more that they need to check on the daily basis, or they've got to do something technical with it every single day. No, that's why they invented the charge controller, and that's why they invented the MPPT charge controller. It takes all of that necessity of physically being there or physically having to do something every single day out of the equation and makes life a hell of a lot easier. Okay, so what is this first screen that we're looking at? PWMs aren't going to always have a screen, but I'm pretty sure, then pretty confident that most MPPT charge controllers are going to have some sort of digital screen like this with some buttons, and they're going to have a different menu set up, and every one of them is going to have a little bit different looks and different icons and stuff, but it's roughly the same information, just presented in a different way. So let's go through what's happening here. Up here at the top, I've got a sun. That means it's daytime, and the sun is hitting the panels, and these little progressive dots are just demonstrating and illustrating that the sun is providing charge to the panels, and the panels are now providing charge to the battery, and vice versa. The battery is actively and currently providing charge to my load terminals. That never stops because I've got my load terminals set to mode 15 out of 15 on this particular model. The load terminals can be used for different things, but not heavy loads. What's a load? A load is any electrical device plugged into your system. I think people get confused when that terminology is used. A load can be your hairdryer, a load can be your toothbrush, a load can be a lawnmower or whatever. It's anything that's consuming electricity. And the load terminals on charge controllers can be adjusted, especially on MPPT controllers. And what that means is there's 15 different modes for my load terminals. And I have gone through them, and I don't have any life needs or anything in my life that would require lights to be going on and off automatically and only staying on for a certain amount of time, or I don't have, fans or any other electronic devices that need to come on and come off at precise times automatically. Yeah, there's lots of applications for that. Like that would be great for a greenhouse if you had an external greenhouse that was off grid and you didn't want to walk out there and turn the lights on and off every single time, or turn the fans off and on every single time. So it's definitely useful. It's just not for me. I turn it on mode 15, and for this particular model and brand, load 15 is just manual. It's on until I turn it off. I can turn it off through the Bluetooth, or I can turn it off on this face. But it's providing charge to these load terminals until it's gone. I guess that's sort of accurate too, until it's gone or until I turn it off. All I've got plugged into mine right now is my LED lights. And all those have their own switches or remotes. And so it's just easier for me to have it on all the time until I turn it off. That way I can use the switches and lights to turn the lights off when I want, and it's just makes sense for me. I'm not saying it's better for anybody else. That's just what I've decided that works best for me. I'm one person most of the time in a 20-foot long bus, bumper to bumper, so there's not a whole lot going on here. I don't have to have timers on things. Okay, so moving on down, this is in boost charge mode right now, and I'm kind of hoping that it will go back up to MPPT just for demonstration's sake. But over here on this side of the screen, it's going to say what charge mode it's in. That could be MPPT charge mode, boost mode, float mode, equalize mode. All those modes have different purposes, and they serve different importances for different people, just like the load thing. Right now it's in boost, probably because I have it. I tweak my boost mode depending on what I'm using my system for. I'll turn my boost mode on actually 105% of my battery when I'm out mowing lawn or rototilling. I don't recommend anybody else do that because unless you know what you're doing. But my boost mode is probably set to 24.4 or 24.6. It doesn't seem to be going any higher, but there are clouds right now. I without going into the app and looking for sure, I can't remember. But boost mode is kind of a I don't want to use the word reckless. It's more of a, it doesn't regulate it as much. When it goes into boost mode, it's pretty much letting the full charge from those panels into your batteries without controlling it much, I guess, if you will, now that we've covered that. It's probably in boost mode right now because the combination of what time it is, it's like noon, and the cloud cover that's right now is probably equalizing it out to where the panels are probably providing somewhere close to 24 or 25 actual volts. And so it's in boost mode right now because it's trying to maximize everything out of that. Unfeathered or unrestricted, I guess, if you will. The one above it would be MPPT charge mode, which is the mode that it's in probably 98% of the time. That's just maximizing as many possible cells from the panels up there as it possibly can. It's taking every ounce from everywhere and then controlling it into that safe voltage or amperage for your batteries. Equalize is a mode that is probably available for